The Last Wish is the first book in the Witcher series, containing several short stories. In the first one, Geralt of Rivia, a Witcher, fights the incredibly dangerous Striga, and only after outsmarting it, he lifts the curse, turning the creature back into a princess. In a similar fashion, Geralt defeats 2 more monsters in the book. In another story, however, he learns that conflicting shades of morality can sometimes result in humans acting more like monsters than the creatures he slays for coin. More importantly, Geralt is invited to a royal banquet in Sintra one day, where an uninvited masked knight suddenly appears and claims that he has a right to marry Princess Pavetta because he saved her father's life in the past. As thanks, and by means of the law of surprise, the knight could claim something the father did not expect to have, which turned out to be his unborn daughter Pavetta, the princess of Sintra. Years later, the outrage of this unexpected knight showing up at the banquet causes Pavetta to release an uncontrollable burst of wild magic after the guests attack the knight, which she had been seeing secretly. Geralt helps stabilize the situation and saves the masked knight's life. When their love is sealed, the curse of the masked knight is also lifted, turning his hedgehog-like face back into a handsome man called Junie. Junie offers Geralt whatever he asks, and the Witcher invokes the law of surprise. Pavetta reveals that she is pregnant, leaving Geralt with the right to claim the child. In another important short story, Geralt meets Yennefer, a powerful sorceress. When his friend Dandelion fishes a strange-looking vase out of a lake, releasing a malevolent djinn into the world, which curses him. Only the local sorceress, Yennefer, can heal the bard Dandelion, but she ends up using him as bait to capture the djinn for herself. The djinn is stronger than expected and wreaking havoc on the small town, until Geralt finally figures out that it is bound to him, and waiting for him to utter his last wish. After Geralt does just that, the djinn escapes. Yennefer is saved, and it is suggested that Geralt's last wish had something to do with binding his fate to the sorceress Yennefer, and the two make love in the ruins of the city's tavern. In the second book, Sword of Destiny, Geralt resolves a couple monster-related situations diplomatically, and lets some of the creatures live instead of outright killing them, as they sometimes have no harmful intentions and merely try to live their lives alongside humans. In another more important story, Geralt finds himself among the mysterious dryads of Brokilon Forest, where he kills a giant centipede that was threatening a little girl named Ciri. Ciri grows fond of Geralt, and the dryads reveal that she is in fact the child of surprise bound to the Witcher by destiny, as she is the daughter of Pavetta and Junie. Geralt, however, refuses to take her with him and make her a part of his dangerous life as a Witcher. The last short story is the most beautiful one, as it leaves Geralt pondering if he should believe in destiny or not, as he himself was a supposed child of surprise, but abandoned by his mother, and later taken in by Witchers. In this story, he learns of the Battle of Sodden Hill, where 14 powerful sorcerers were killed, trying to drive back the invading empire of Nilfgaard, which is about to take over the entire free northern realms. One of the sorcerers who died on the hill is presumed to be Yennefer of Vengerberg. Geralt is heartbroken, but a merchant named Jurga later reveals to him that the 14th sorcerer was not Yennefer. Geralt's faith in destiny is restored, and he means to return to Sintra. His friend Dandelion tells him, however, that the kingdom of Sintra has fallen to Nilfgaard, and the little girl, Princess Ciri, is missing and assumed dead. When Geralt asks his friend if he believes in destiny, Dandelion claims that if two people are destined to be together, there has to be something more for that destiny to actually mean anything. Sometime later, Geralt arrives at the house of Jurga, the merchant, and his wife has a surprise waiting for them. She has taken in a young orphan girl who survived the Nilfgaardian attacks. The child turns out to be Ciri, who managed to escape Sintra. The girl and her beloved Witcher reunite, and she asks Geralt if she is his destiny, to which the Witcher responds by saying that she is something more. The third book in the Witcher series is called Blood of Elves, and is actually the first installment with a continuous storyline, dropping the short story format. The book is focused partly on a raging war between the northern kingdoms and the invading Nilfgaardian Empire from the south. Rumor has it that Emhyr Far Emrys, the Emperor of Nilfgaard, is in search of Princess Cirilla of Sintra, as she has immense magical potential, just like her mother Pavetta did. This magic is caused by her elven blood, which is prophesied to return to the world one day to either save it or destroy it entirely. The kings in the north soon learn that Emperor Emhyr wants Ciri for a royal lineage to legitimize his occupation of Sintra, which is part of the northern realms. To prevent this, they do whatever they can to find and kill Ciri. In secret, Geralt of Rivia has taken Ciri to his Witcher's keep, Kaer Morhen, to protect her and train her in the ways of the Witcher. And Geralt's old mentor, Vesemir, has asked sorceress Triss Merigold to help Ciri try to control her unruly magic. She's also there to support Ciri in going through puberty as a young woman. Meanwhile, Rience, an evil wizard, captures Dandelion and tortures him for information on Ciri's whereabouts. Yennefer saves him though, and burns Rience's face, leaving a hideous scar. Geralt decides to leave Ciri at the temple school in Elendor, to keep her safe and to make sure she gets a normal education from Princess Nenneke. After some time, Geralt manages to track down Rience, but the wizard's master intervenes and opens a portal for him, in which Rience escapes. Time passes, and Ciri is ready to leave the temple school with Yennefer, who is able to teach her further in controlling her magic. During the trip, Ciri admits she didn't really like Yennefer when they first met, but eventually the two of them develop a beautiful mother-daughter type relationship. In the next book, Time of Contempt, Geralt consults lawyers Codringer and Fen to try and figure out who this Rience person and his master are. Meanwhile, Yennefer and Ciri make it to a city nearby the Aretuza School of Magic, where Yen plans to enroll Ciri. Ciri doesn't want to be imprisoned, however, and steals a horse and makes her way to a village where she heard Geralt is staying. Yennefer catches up with her, and the three of them reconcile and head back to Aretuza on Thanedd Island. Geralt and Yen go to an evening ball there, which isn't one of Geralt's favorite activities. He meets some of the most important wizards and sorcerers among the chapter of mages, as well as spy master Dijkstra and his partner, sorceress Philippa Eilhart. In the morning, Philippa and Dijkstra attempt a coup, ambushing the most powerful mages in the northern realms. It turns out half the mages are aligned with Nilfgaard, while the other half tries to fight for the kingdoms in the north. Many mages are killed or injured in the battle. Geralt breaks Dijkstra's knee, and Ciri flees to the nearby magical Tower of Gulls. A powerful sorcerer named Vilgefortz wants to capture Ciri for his own plans, but Geralt stops him. He fights the mage, but gets severely wounded. As Vilgefortz enters the Tower of Gulls, Ciri escapes in an unstable portal that suddenly appears and explodes soon after in Vilgefortz's face, scarring him. Soon after the events on Thanedd Island, Dandelion finds Geralt in the forest of Brokilon, where the Dryads are helping him recover. His friend fills him in on the ongoing war, in which several northern kingdoms have already fallen under Emperor Emhyr's Nilfgaardian rule. Ciri, meanwhile, wakes up in the desert, miles away from where she was. With the help of a unicorn that suddenly appears, she just barely makes it out alive. Her unicorn gets wounded, fighting off a venomous sand monster, and Ciri tries to heal it by using magic. The power she taps into, however, is so strong that she is overtaken by visions of her as a witch ravaging the entire continent. Ciri decides, then and there, she she'll never use magic again. And soon after, she is found by bounty hunters who capture her. A while later, a bandit group called the Rats save her from the bounty hunters and lets her join under a new name, Falca. In the third full-length novel in the series, Baptism of Fire, Geralt is still recovering from his grave injuries from fighting Vilgefortz, but still sets off in search for Ciri. Accompanied by Dandelion and Milva, an expert archer he met at Brokilon Forest. When the three of them set off on their journey, they soon start to notice that they're being followed by Cahir, a Nilfgaardian knight who was tasked with capturing Ciri during the slaughter of Sintra. Ciri still suffers from nightmares every now and then, of her being chased by this black knight with his winged helmet. When Dandelion and Geralt get separated from Milva at some point, Cahir manages to save her life. As the four of them reconvene, Geralt intends to kill Cahir. Milva convinces Geralt to leave him be, however, as she is indebted to him. Geralt reluctantly lets Cahir tag along, and after traveling for a while, they come upon a vampire named Regis, who becomes the fifth member of this little group of misfits Geralt finds himself in. At some point, the group is caught in a fight between Nilfgaard and the Three Realms, and Geralt gets knighted for his heroic actions there during the battle for the bridge on the Uruga River. Geralt has always introduced himself as Geralt of Rivia, even though he wasn't born there, but Queen Maeve knights him and makes this title official. Ciri is getting used to her life with the rats as Falca, and gets a bit obsessed with killing, as the group do it regularly, to steal riches and food. 10 female mages form a new organization, the Lodge of Sorceresses. They are done with acting out of neutrality and in service of the Northern Kings, so they instead focus their efforts on ruling the continent by themselves. They figure that the only way the Northern nobles would accept that is if they are all unified under someone who can wield magic and has royal blood. Another group is therefore created that wants to capture Ciri for their own purposes. Yennefer of Vengerberg, however, wants to find Ciri on her own, and manages to escape the Lodge of Sorceresses by teleporting to the nearby Viking-like islands of Skellige. The Tower of the Swallow, which is the fourth entry in the Witcher books, starts off with an old philosopher named Visigoda, who takes in Ciri after finding her near his secluded swamp hut. It's there where Ciri recounts everything that happened to her in the last couple months. Ciri, or Falca, was happy living among the rats, who became good friends. But as she hears that the fake look-alike of hers is about to marry the Emperor of Nilfgaard, she desperately wants to go back to Sintra. As she heads off, meanwhile, the rats are being chased by an infamous bounty hunter, Leo Bonhart. The rats decide to fight him head-on, but it proves to be a mistake, as he slaughters them one by one and cuts off their heads. Ciri finds them after the battle, but Bonhart captures her. Nilfgaardian coroner Stephen Skellen had tasked Bonhart with finding and killing Ciri, but when the ruthless bounty hunter has her, he throws the girl in an arena where she has to fend for her life. Ciri isn't the only one with a bounty hunter on her though, as Geralt and his group are being tracked by a man named Nightingale and his gang of criminals. A former member of this group, a young girl named Angoulême, helps Geralt by ambushing this group of bandits. Geralt finds out that Nightingale was hired by a half-elf assassin named Shiru, who brutally murdered lawyers Codringer and Fen after Geralt consulted them. This all leads Geralt to believe that everything leads back to the wizard Vilgefortz, who wants Ciri for himself, and the Witcher dead. Now joined by Angoulême, the 6 of them travel to the sunny wine country of Toussaint in the south, where Geralt hopes to find druids that could point him to Ciri. Instead, Geralt ends up meeting the elven sage, Avalok, who tells him about the prophecy that speaks of Ciri's role in the end of the world. He tells Geralt to not find Ciri, as destiny will happen regardless. Geralt isn't convinced and still goes after Ciri. Yennefer spends some time in the Isles of Skellige, where she manages to find Vilgefort's hideout at Stigga Castle, but she gets captured there by the man himself. Vilgefort and his lackey Shirud, half-elf, torture her relentlessly until she gives up information on Ciri. Yennefer doesn't break though, but in the end is forced to reveal where Geralt is, explaining how Shirud found the Witcher. Ciri explains to Visigoda how she escaped Bonhard's gladiatorial arena. Stefan Skellen, who sent Bonhard after Ciri, comes to visit the arena one day. Riens, the wizard who first went after Ciri for his master Vilgefort, is also there. The three of them talk and find out their intentions are more or less the same. But then, a fight breaks out after Bonhard kills a supposed infiltrator within the group. Ciri makes use of this chaos and escapes on her horse Kelpie, but gets wounded by Stefan Skellen's throwing star that hits her cheek. She uses her Elder Blood powers to teleport away to Visigoda's swamp. After staying there for a little while, she has to leave the kind old man's home when she's being tracked again. She sets off to find a similar magical tower to the one in Aretuza, where she was teleported from to a desert. On the way there, on a dark and cold night, she brutally slaughters some of Skellen's henchmen in a tavern, striking fear into the local town. Upon finding the Tower of the Swallow, she lures her pursuers onto a frozen lake. Striking out of the fog on ice skates given to her by Visigoda, she kills them all, one by one. Stefan Skellen just barely hangs onto the ice, but Riens gets his fingers chopped off by Ciri's ice skates and drowns in the cold water. Only Bonhard makes it out of the massacre unscathed, but to his surprise, Ciri disappears into Tor Tirel, which suddenly materializes in the fog. In the final book, Lady of the Lake, Ciri is found bathing in a lake in ancient Britain. She is found by one of King Arthur's knights, whom she tells the story of everything that's happened to her back in her own world. These events have become legends hundreds of years later, which are being studied by Nimue, the Lady of the Lake, and a sorceress named Condwirimers. The sorceress tries to figure out the truth by going into a magical dream state, and it's from there where we learn what happens to Ciri and Geralt. Ciri finds herself in the distant world of the An-El, higher elves that keep her in that world by means of a magical barrier. One of the elves there, Avalok, tells her that they want her to sleep with their elven king, become pregnant, and give them an elven child who could be more in touch with the elder blood than Ciri, who is just a lowly human. And Eredin, the elven king of the Wild Hunt who is there, also wants Ciri for himself. With the help of the mysterious unicorns, which also inhabit this world, Ciri finally escapes, just after Eredin kills the Elven King. Now being chased by the Wild Hunt, Ciri slowly learns to control her powers of space and time. First, by learning how to teleport on command, and finally, how to go exactly where and when in time she wants to be. Her travels take her through various worlds and places where she becomes an urban legend, even arriving in her own medieval Germany and France. Geralt stays in Toussaint for a long time, far too long as he's being tricked into staying there by the seductive sorceress from Vigo. He enjoys his time there, making money from slaying the various monsters and hanging out with the knights errant, but soon, by happenstance, he learns of Yen and potentially Ciri's whereabouts. With this new information, he immediately decides to leave Toussaint and the flingy Hela, the sorceress who kept him from going after Ciri for months by having sex with him and keeping him content. he leaves Dandelion, who's happily staying with the Duchess of Toussaint, to find the castle of the evil Vilgefortz. Meanwhile, a decisive battle takes place between the allied northern kingdoms and Nilfgaard, which finally resolves in both parties agreeing to the peace treaty of Sintra. And Ciri finally manages to teleport to Vilgefortz's castle to save Yennefer. But unfortunately, she's overpowered by the wizard, who plans to inseminate her to keep her powerful elder blood child for himself. He begins strapping Ciri to a chair in his laboratory. But Geralt storms the castle just in time, and his companions slaughter many enemies, but Angoulême and the archer Milva fall in battle. The vampire Regis, in the form of a monstrous bat, is able to find Ciri first and frees her. Cahir, the Black Knight with the winged helmet, takes on Bonhard, so Ciri can escape. But ultimately, he falls to the bounty hunter, leaving Ciri to fight Bonhard herself. After a long battle, in which Ciri needs everything she was taught by the Witchers of Kaer Morhen, she ends up outsmarting him, and finally takes revenge on Bonhard by slitting his throat. Geralt saves Yennefer in the meantime, and the two of them face off with Vilgefortz, who keeps blasting fireballs at them, which crumble the castle's foundations. Regis the vampire finds them and does manage to keep Vilgefortz at bay for a little bit, but ends up burning to death. With an almost broken body from all the falling rubble, Geralt finally closes the distance between him and the wizard, and kills Vilgefortz with the use of an amulet given to him by Fringilla Vigo. Yennefer, Geralt, and Ciri are finally reunited once again. But they have to get out of this castle as soon as possible, and the two witchers easily slaughter their way through an entire stairwell filled with Stefan Skellen's men. And then, Emperor Emhyr and his Nilfgaardian troop show up, who means to impregnate Ciri as well, to produce a child of elder blood that could save the world. Geralt recognizes that Emhyr is actually the cursed Black Knight Juni, which he helped all those years ago. To keep the incest secret, Emperor Emhyr offers Yennefer and Geralt to commit suicide together in a warm bath. But as they are laying in the warm water, they get interrupted by Ciri, who tells him that the Emperor ended up changing his mind, and the three of them ride off to visit all the places Ciri has been recently, to tie up loose ends and punish those who hurt her. The reunion doesn't last long though, as Geralt is meant to travel to Rivia, while Yennefer and Ciri pay a visit to the Lodge of Sorceresses. They obligate Ciri to bear a child with the Coverian prince, and the Lodge would raise that child as their own. Ciri and Yen begrudgingly agree, on the terms that Ciri can visit Geralt one last time in Rivia. Geralt, meanwhile, is drinking and catching up with Dandelion and two dwarven friends in the local tavern in Rivia. But not long after, a huge racism-fueled riot breaks out between non-humans and humans in the village. Geralt, being caught up in the fight, gets impaled by a peasant's pitchfork. Yennefer and Triss Merigold conjure up a huge storm which finally calms down the whole situation, but Geralt is on the verge of death. Ciri and Yen and Triss finally find him, and it takes Yennefer so much energy to try and heal her beloved Witcher that she loses consciousness. As her mother and father are lying there motionless, Ciri, with the help of the unicorn that has helped her many times, takes Geralt and Yen away to what is presumed to be Avalon. Ciri tells the knight Galahad about the end of her story, saying she doesn't want it to end in such a sad way. So instead, she tells him Yen and Geralt got married and all of her friends were there. But she starts crying as she's saying it. Galahad and Ciri hold hands and travel to Camelot together.